Hola friends, today we are having a mindful conversation about the ego, how it represents itself in our own thoughts and actions, as well as 5 ways that we can take charge and control the ego so we are able to live through our most authentic self. If anything in today's video resonates with you, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to Mama Om so we can stay connected through these mindful conversations. Without further ado, let's check your ego, amigos. That was so lame. But first, let's just take a minute to understand what the ego looks and feels like within our everyday lives. By acknowledging what the ego looks and feels like within ourselves, we're able to control the ego, which then in turn allows the authentic self to shine through. So what is the ego? Our ego is fearful, worried, doubtful, anxious, self-centered, judgmental, and limited. The ego is always telling us what we should be doing, where we should be in life. And our ego is fueled for the need to compete. So instead of constantly trying to one-up fellow businesswomen, mamas, entrepreneurs, everybody and anybody we come across, take the time to compliment them, empower them, remind them of their worth, and in turn, it will increase your own self-worth. The ego thinks we live in this world of scarcity and that there is not enough to go around, when in reality, that couldn't be further from the truth. When we live through our authentic selves, we can then realize that this life is full of abundance, and the more we give, the more we get back. So often the ego is stuck in competition, dwelling on our own personal success and forgetting to celebrate the success of others around us. To the ego, we have the authentic self. This is where we begin to live through our truth, our essence, and our purpose. So what does the authentic self look like? Authentic self is loving, it is trusting, it is peaceful, inclusive, and accepting. The authentic self is humble, it is patient, and it is infinite. Absolutely no limitations. The authentic self reminds us to simply be, knowing that we are enough where we are, how we are, just as we are within this point in our lives. It's not to say that the ego is entirely bad. I do believe that it has a profound purpose in keeping ourselves in check in this human experience. When we are aware of the ego and how it functions, we can then be mindful in creating a way to live through our authentic selves rather than the ego. When we choose to embody the authentic self, we begin to realize the immense amount of abundance and gratitude that is showing up within our lives. So now that we've taken a look at how to distinguish between the ego, the authentic self, and what both look and feel like within our own selves, we can begin to explore the ways to quiet the ego so that authentic self can rise. Numero uno, and probably the most accessible out of the 5 ways I'm going to share with you guys, is practicing gratitude. There's a couple easy ways to invite gratitude into your everyday life. Flip the complaints that you're so often bringing up. Now, I'm going to try my best to be as transparent with you guys as I promised I would be, and be the first to admit that I am really bad at complaining, and Jerry can probably vouch for that. When we are able to take that complaint or that negative perspective on the situation, flip it into a point of gratitude, we're clear to see all that is actually working in our favor and not against us. If you are a visual person, create a gratitude journal and start your day off by writing down a list of things that you are grateful for. But if you're having a little bit of struggle to get started on this gratitude journey, I highly recommend you check out New Moon Valley gratitude journals. They're wonderful, handmade, and created by a dear friend of mine, so check her out. I will link her below. Right now, I'm grateful that Jerry is entertaining the children while I get to record this for you guys. Alright, so let's take a look at numero dos. I think I got that. Number 2 actually consists of 2 different laws that we're going to be taking a look at, the law of attraction and the law of detachment. Now, the law of attraction states that any positive or negative thoughts you may have will result in positive or negative experiences. In short, you attract your own reflection. With the law of attraction, we manifest our own reality. And secondly is the law of detachment. These next couple points are from Deepak Chopra. If you haven't heard of him, I highly recommend you check him out, especially if this law of detachment resonates with you. Allow others to be as they are and allow yourself to be as you are as well. Secondly, do not force solutions. Allow solutions to emerge on their own. And lastly, uncertainty is essential. It is the path to freedom. If we aren't attached to a certain outcome of a situation or set expectations we had, we are unable to experience that suffering of disappointment or discouragement if things don't go our way. Now, this brings us into point number 3. We're going to be looking at flow. First and foremost, you need to find your flow. What gets the mind moving, the body feeling good? And of course, this is going to be very different for everybody. From painting to running, living room dance parties always work well in our house. Jerry likes to watch motivational videos or maybe even listening to a podcast that really resonates with you. When you can harness the power of your own flow, we can then push away the barricades created by the ego. Now, we've talked about gratitude, the law of attraction, the law of detachment, and finding your own flow. But what happens when these blockages or these barriers are a little bit stronger than we'd first anticipated? Sometimes even after our own self-work into pushing through these barriers, suppressing the ego, and trying our very best to live through that authentic self, we can still feel a little bit stuck. Like there are too many roadblocks in our way. As we come to point number 4, I'm going to touch briefly on purging. I did create a video a couple weeks ago about purging, and that one goes a little bit more into depth of how to purge so many different aspects in your life. So I will link that below. But I did want to touch on the benefits of purging and how it can really help you connect to that authentic self and clear the path of some of those blockages the ego is creating. Okay, so you have just met 2 new friends. Attraction and detachment. So you invite your 2 friends over to your house for a cup of tea and a good conversation. And as you sit down, you realize that your house is jam-packed full of stuff. This may be mind clutter, unused items, personal essentials, whatever it may be, your space is full. Now, as you're engaging in conversation with these new friends of yours, you're also distracted by all the things around you. Your ego begins to bring in uninvited guests to the conversation. Anxiety, judgment, doubt, and worry begin to take over the conversation and distract you from the true importance of what these new friends have to offer. Now, I'm not telling you to get rid of all of your things, but I do want you to imagine this situation now with an empty room. It is you, your new friend, law of attraction, and your new friend, law of detachment. When we purge our personal lives and all the aspects in them, and we have cleared the blocks that have caused us to trip and fall and stumble, we're able to focus on the things that are right in front of us and truly matter. So we have touched on gratitude, the laws of attraction and detachment, flow, and purging. And you may have realized that each one of these points build so nicely on top of each other to create this entire practice of how to live through your authentic self. But there is one more point that I want to share with you that's really going to solidify the entire practice. And this is meditation. Now, I saved this point for last simply because it can be a little bit intimidating to some, but I want you to know that it is only as difficult as you make it. Through meditation, we create a space for ourselves to distinguish between thoughts coming from the ego and thoughts coming from the authentic self. So often we think we are acting out of our best intentions, but our ego is getting caught up in the story of the situation before we can even act out of authenticity. So by creating a consistent meditation practice, we are able to distinguish and differentiate between the two. Now, for those of you new to meditation, there are a ton of phenomenal videos on YouTube to check out on how to begin your own meditation practice. But it really is as simple as taking 5 to 10 minutes for yourself, setting a timer, closing your eyes, and allowing your mind to wander wherever it wants to go. And if meditation is up your alley and you'd like to explore that a little bit further, Kundalini Yoga taught by Yogi Bhajan has an amazing kriya that includes the ego eradicator, completely destroying your ego and all of the harm that it can do. Myra Penaloza, who I've mentioned before, has amazing programs in Edmonton, Alberta, as well as Guru Jagat, who you can follow along online. These two divine women, along with the entire Kundalini Yoga practice, has really helped me tame my ego and live through my authentic self. Now, these 5 points do work in beautiful harmony with one another, but that is not to say you can't target one point and work on that before you move on to the next. This was just a slice of the surface of what the ego has taught me and all the possibilities that are out there in how to live your authentic self. This conversation could wander down a million different rabbit trails, so I thank you for sticking with me on today's topic. And as always, I want to hear about your experiences with ego. Please do share in the comments below, connect over social media, be sure to follow my channel, friends, and I will talk to you next Monday.